I guessed every single twist. Everyone, way before it happened. But I still couldn't put the book down. I went into this genuinely expecting to struggle because domestic thriller is a genre that I have deliberately avoided for years. But what I discovered was... Hello, if you're new here, my name is Martin. I write fantasy as MA Knights, and this is the first in what will hopefully become a series of challenge videos. The idea is to get myself out of my comfort zone when it comes to my reading, my writing, and my artwork. And the challenge I'm starting with is a simple one. I have to read a domestic thriller within the next 5 days. Why domestic thriller? Because I've never read one. The genre just really doesn't interest me at all. Obviously, I read a lot of fantasy, I read a lot of sci-fi, I read some horror, I even read some non-fiction and some literary fiction, but I just don't read thrillers. And of all the thrillers, domestic thrillers interest me the least. So why read one? Well, I want to see if there is anything I can take from a domestic thriller that I can incorporate into my own writing. I write cozy fantasy, which is basically the polar opposite of a domestic thriller. Cozy fantasy is very character-based, but it's about seeing the best in people and about forming meaningful bonds and relationships, whereas, from what I gather, domestic thrillers are about discovering that your friends and loved ones have these secret lives and may not be the people who you think they are. But maybe I can learn something. Why the 5-day time limit? That might seem fairly generous, and I guess it is, but I have ADHD, and that means that I don't always read the fastest. Sometimes I get brain fog. That means I can't read at all. And this is a genre that I have never read. So I'm giving myself a reasonable time limit, but I will have a forfeit to do if I don't make it within the 5 days. I've created this Wheel of Doom, so let's see what it says. What's it gonna land on? Okay, so my challenge is to read this book within 5 days, and if I don't, I am gonna have a book added to my TBR by the Knights of the Round Table. The Knights of the Round Table, if you don't know, are my readers over on Discord. They also help me out by giving me a bunch of suggestions of domestic thriller writers and a few books, so I headed off to the library to see what I could find. And immediately got distracted by a book sale. Although, thankfully for this challenge, they didn't really have any fantasy or sci-fi. There were loads of thrillers, but I hadn't heard of any of them and they weren't on my list.
Handy for what you need. There's all there. Which one have you got there?
Don't let him in.
Don't let him in. Just a stew. There are some good ones there. I'm torn to this one.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that one. Okay, that one it is. So in the end, I came back with this, Daisy Darkness by Alice Feeney. Of all the ones I looked at, this was the one that spoke to me the most. I think that's probably because it's based on a kind of old crumbling building out at sea. I think there's something about them getting cut off from the mainland. Can't remember now. Yeah, it's on its own private island. And basically that gave me Gothic mansion vibes. So it appealed to me slightly more than all the others. So it's currently 11:45 on a Thursday morning. I have the next 5 days to read this book. So I better get going. Good morning. You could be forgiven for thinking that it was the next day. It is not the next day. It is in fact the day after the next day, and I'm already behind with this challenge. It's also 10 o'clock and I am still in my pajamas and will probably remain that way for most of the day. So I didn't get any reading done yesterday, but I did get 70 pages read on day one. And I can see why people read thrillers, because they are very easy to read, or at least this one is. I would say I definitely read those 70 pages in a shorter amount of time than I would have read 70 pages of, say, an epic fantasy or something like that. Story-wise, I'm undecided about this book. It's okay so far. There's been a murder, but really I need to read more. So today is a Saturday. I don't have a lot going on today, so I'm going to try and get a good chunk of this read today. Okay, I get it. I think if all domestic thrillers are like this, I understand the appeal. It is so easily readable and digestible, and the pace keeps you wanting to read more, and it doesn't feel, I was going to say doesn't feel challenging, but that sounds a bit, it doesn't feel difficult in the way that some other books, it doesn't feel like you have to put in so much effort, maybe, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it's day 5. I have about 70 pages left. So I think I'm going to beat this challenge. I'm going to do it. And to be honest, I think if I had really tried, I probably could have read this book in a day or two. It's that easy to pick up and read. And that's not to say that I don't have issues with it, but we'll get into that once I've finished. Finished. So what's my verdict? Well, there's good and there's bad. If this is a good example of the genre, then I totally understand why people read domestic thrillers. Pretty fast paced, it's compelling, you just want to read more, and it's easy to read. That being said, in this particular instance, I guessed every twist that was coming way before it came. And I don't want to pretend that I'm one of those people that just always guesses the twist, because I'm not. Plenty of times I don't. But in this instance I did. That's probably not an accurate representation of what every book in the genre would be like for me, but that's what happened this time. Still feel like the overall subject matter is not one that particularly interests me. The minutiae of families and their disagreements and their arguments and their pettiness just is not really something I particularly want to read about. This was set in a crumbly old house on an island, and that definitely helped with the vibe for me. There was a lot of crossover between Gothic horror. But annoyingly, and this is a spoiler, so look away now if you don't want this book to be spoiled for you. Are you gone? Okay. Annoyingly, I deliberately picked this genre because it has nothing in that I normally read. No supernatural stuff, no fantasy stuff, nothing speculative at all. And yet, part of the resolution of this book reveals that there is a supernatural element to the whole thing. Again, that's definitely not going to be the case in most domestic thrillers, but just happens to be in the one that I picked, and I think it's quite amusing and probably quite telling of my tastes that it was this one that I picked up. I finished it easily within the 5 days. As I said before, I think I probably could have finished it in 1 or 2 days if I really sat down and gave it all my attention. Can I steal anything from this for my own writing? I don't know. I think some of the relationship stuff and the minutiae of people's grievances and annoyances perhaps could be useful to me, but as I said at the beginning, this is the polar opposite of what I write. Cozy fantasy is about seeing the good in people and discovering friends and loved ones, whereas this is very much the opposite. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing I can take from it. Certainly the easy reading style and the pacing, I think, could be useful. But this had a pretty negative outlook on life, and the characters are all pretty unlikable and negative people in general, which isn't something that I'm going to want to take really into my own work. The question is, where do I go from here? What should my next challenge be? And I'm going to ask you guys to decide for me. So head on over to my Discord page. I'll put the link in the description, and there will be a poll there to vote on what my next genre challenge should be. Should it be another domestic thriller? Do I switch to thriller in general, or something completely different? But for now, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to catch the next one, and I'll see you then.